Good morning. Do we have any preliminary matters before we have the jury?
Yes, sure. Elaine, Your Honour, we received 126 photos. Judge Penny, oh goodness. Elaine, last night, almost shortly before midnight. Judge Penny, okay. Elaine, we're still assessing them. Judge Penny, I understand. Elaine, and so we'll determine, but I wanted the court to know that we now have those. Judge Penny, you have them. Good. Elaine, and we're going to figure out, Judge Penny, how are you going to use them? Good, that's fine. The witness / Depp team. Indiscernible. Yeah, and we... Judge Penny, you might do the same thing. Okay. Elaine, and then officer signs will be by video this afternoon. I'm trying to work off those exhibits because that was before we started. Judge Penny, all right. Elaine, working those with Your Honour. So we're going to see if we can get those figured out. If there's any we disagree on, we want to argue about those before we do the deposition. Judge Penny, okay. The witness / Depp, we should be able to work that out. Judge Penny, right. And it's a remote witness first, and then you're going to have a live witness before the deposition. The witness Depp, yes. Elaine, correct. Judge Penny, okay, so that'll work out. Elaine, thanks. The witness Depp, thank you, Your Honour.
People with borderline personality disorder, it seems to be a predictive factor for women who implement violence against their partner. And one of the most common tactics that they'll use is actually physically assaulting and then getting harmed themselves. But mostly, we call this administrative violence. Essentially, this is saying that they'll make threats using the legal system. So they might say that they are going to file a restraining order or claim abuse, or they might do these things to essentially try to keep their partner from leaving. In the moment, again, they're not consciously thinking, I'm going to keep my partner from leaving right now. They're just thinking, I can't stand this. I hate my partner. They went from idealizing to suddenly devaluing because of the hurt, and they'll do anything to express that big emotion of anger.
Your Honor, may we approach?
All right, yes, sir.
Wayne Dennison. Your Honour, I'm going to ask her about what other parts of her review led her to make the borderline diagnosis, and among the issues that the witness will testify to is that Miss Heard made a self-report of arrest, and the issue was raised previously in motions in limine. I did not want to raise it in front of the court until I had talked with you about it. Elaine, Your Honour, Miss Heard arrest charges were dropped in 2000. Judge Penny, I think it's highly prejudicial, so I'm not going to allow that. Do you think you can do that without informing your witness not to? Wayne Dennison, yeah. Judge Penny, okay. Wayne Dennison, thank you.
Okay. You indicated you were talking about emotional reactivity. What, if any, emotional reactivity did you observe in your review? And let's do this one at a time.
Okay. So there were a couple indications to me. First, I can sort of think about it with the treatment records. So particularly Dr. Cohen-Connell.
Today under oath that you did not tell your husband that you were going to be conducting the examination of Amber?
That is my testimony. Okay.
Let's go to page 306. So the question that was asked was because you brought muffins, you said, from your husband, right? And you gave those to Ms. Hurd, correct?
May I clarify what occurred so that we can stop talking about the muffins? What happened was that I was getting ready that morning. I frequently bring muffins to the office. My husband did happen to know that there was going to be a celebrity client coming in because on the mornings that occurs, which often occurs, we have to actually clear the office and move the staff to the other office. So yes, on the one hand, he was aware of that. I was getting ready. I asked him to go to the bakery near our house and pick up the muffins for me because I was running late. He often has to do that because I often do run late. He brought the muffins back to the house. I brought them into the office. Ms. Hurd and I enjoyed the muffins together. I think I made a comment to her along the lines like, we can thank my husband. My husband got these for us today, meaning he purchased the muffins. We are now enjoying them because of him.
Did you say on pages 305 and 306 that you frequently have examinations of high-profile clients? You want to just take a quick look and tell us?
What, 305, 306?
Yeah, that's where we're talking about it.
Is there a line you'd like me to look at?
You can start with 15, line 15, 305. Just read through that and tell me whether you said anywhere in there that you have a lot of high-profile examinations. You do this frequently. I don't agree.
Won't you approach, please?
Judge Penny, which statement are you trying to impeach here? Elaine, I'm trying to impeach. She added into the one that's on page 304 to 306. She added in that she has lots of high-profile clients that she does this for, closes the office. She doesn't say that in there. Judge Penny, why don't you ask her? She didn't say that before. Elaine, I'll ask her. Judge Penny, I don't know. Elaine, it starts on page 305 and then her answer is on 306. She doesn't say in there that she sees lots of high-profile clients. She added it in there. She added she has many high-profile clients. Wayne Dennison. The way to answer the question exactly the way opposing counsel suggests, if she wants to ask the question about whether you said that before. Judge Penny, you mentioned that. Elaine, I will.
So
Judge Penny, okay, thank you.
why did your husband get the muffins for Amber Heard?
He did not get the muffins for Amber Heard.
He knew you had a high-profile client, and you were preparing for a very long time, and you asked him to pick up the muffins, correct?
I asked him to pick up the muffins for me, yes.
Okay. Dr. Cowan has been a clinical psychologist for 40 years, correct?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, he testified to that, didn't he, in the deposition?
I don't recall.
And he also saw Amber Heard for over 2 years, correct?
Yes.
From 2014, approximately August 2014 to 2016, correct?
Yes, he did.
For a period of time, would you agree? Okay. And he also testified that he did not diagnose Amber with borderline personality disorder. Do you recall that testimony?
He also testified that he doesn't use diagnoses, but yes, I do recall that.
And do you recall that it was in, those words were in his notes, but he said he had written that down, but then he discounted it and determined that that was not correct for her?
Oh, you want to approach?
Judge Penny, yes, sir. Wayne Dennison. So many elements to that question that I couldn't follow it. Elaine, I'll withdraw that one. Judge Penny, okay.
All right, now let's jump to Amy Banks. Dr. Banks is a psychiatrist, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, she went to medical school at Georgetown, and she did her psychiatric training at Harvard Medical School, correct?
I believe that's correct. I don't recall 100%.
All right, and she, and do you recall Dr. Banks saying that she was not surprised that Amber was seeking a restraining order because of the violence that she knew existed in the relationship?
I do recall that, and it would be impossible to know that violence exists as a treating therapist or as a psychologist. Again, we're not investigators. However, I do recall that she said that because I remember having that thought.
And do you recall Amy, and she's a psychiatrist, right?
Psychiatrist.
Okay. And do you recall Amy Banks saying that it was clear to her that Mr. Depp was the one who initiated the violence?
I don't recall that.
do you recall that Dr. Banks said that she knew for certain that Mr. Depp was the one who had committed the violence because Ms. Heard reported it in the presence of Mr. Depp and he did not contradict?
I do not recall that.
Okay. And do you recall that Dr. Banks ultimately concluded that it was her belief that Amber was a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Mr. Depp?
Here, you want to approach this?
Judge Penny. Yes, sir. Wayne Dennison. I understand the desire to get in the expert testimony, but that's going to come in. All she's asking about is whether she recalls certain statements. Judge Penny, what's the objection? Wayne Dennison. The objection is duplicative of... it's speculative given the lack of clear foundation. Judge Penny, you can redirect her on that. That's fine. I'll allow the questions. I assume you're near the end of those questions. Elaine, excuse me? Judge Penny, I'm assuming you're near the end of those questions. Elaine, yes, I'm going to be going to something different. Judge Penny, all right, I've got you.
What was the answer to that last one? I'm sorry.
I think I can't recall, but I also can't recall that last question.
Do you recall that Dr. Banks concluded that Amber was a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Mr. Depp?
I don't recall that.
Okay. Now, and you have not made any determinations, including any of opinions that Ms. Heard abused Mr. Depp or Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct. That's outside of the scope of psychology.
Okay. And you cannot testify whether Amber Heard suffered any emotional distress as a result of any of the defamatory comments that she has alleged Mr. Waldman made through Mr. Depp made through Mr. Waldman, correct?
What I can testify is that there was no indication of a decline in psychological functioning showing any injury since she's been with Mr. Depp.
You cannot testify one way or the other on that, correct? Your Honor, may we approach?
Okay.
Judge Penny. All right. Elaine. Your Honour, she was specifically prohibited from testifying to any emotional distress related to defamation. She was trying to throw in a little extra there. Wayne Dennison. Well, you asked the question directly. Elaine. I did, because I wanted to establish you can't. Judge Penny. Well, if you asked the question, though, I'm not... You're saying she's banned from answering, but then you asked the question? Elaine. All right, I will clear it up then. I think she can't. Judge Penny. She can if you ask her the question, though. That's the problem. Elaine. I don't agree with that. She didn't give that opinion indiscernible. She didn't give that in her designation. Judge Penny. But if you ask the question, she's going to answer it. Elaine. Okay, Your Honour. I'll clean it up and then I'm done. Wayne Dennison. Thank you, Your Honour. Judge Penny. Yep.
Dr. Curry.
Yes.
In your report, nowhere in your report did you provide any opinion of whether Ms. Heard suffered emotional distress as a result of the defamatory statements. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, redirect. Sure, well, do you,
Approach? Sure.
are they agreed on, or?
Mr. Moniz. So there are just a couple of general disagreements that I think, once you put rulings on, that will educate us on which way the court's going. There are a few LAPD documents like this. Judge Penny. Okay. Mr. Moniz. These are basically LAPD forms, so we're not... Let me back up. Officer Signs is the next deposition. Judge Penny, right? Mr. Moniz. She was one of the officers who came. These are like LAPD forms. This is not something that was provided to Miss Heard. This is like more general, like the general LAPD procedures. Our view is that given that it wasn't, no report was made based on this, and it wasn't provided to her, it's not relevant. So we would suggest that documents like these don't come in. The other side disagrees. That's kind of the first. Judge Penny, were these shown to her at some point? Mr. Moniz. They were shown to her in the deposition. Those portions of the deposition testimony are coming in. We don't think the document itself is relevant, since it doesn't pertain to anything that the officers actually did. Judge Penny. I mean, why would the document come in? Elaine. The document is because we're reading from it. Judge Penny. I mean, you can read from it. I understand that. But why does it actually come into evidence if it was never shown to her? Elaine. It was shown to her. Mr. Moniz. It was never provided to Miss Heard. Judge Penny. So it was never shown to Miss Heard. Elaine. Because it's their policies and procedures. Mr. Moniz. These are fact witnesses. These are fact witnesses. They're not testifying about general procedures. Judge Penny. I understand. You can obviously talk about it. I guess that's in the deposition already. But it's not coming into evidence. Elaine. Okay. Mr. Moniz. So that takes care of 758, 756. I guess that's taking care of 759. And does that take care of 757, or do we all agree on that? Judge Penny. A lot of paper flying here. Mr. Moniz. Sorry. Judge Penny. That's okay. Mr. Moniz. This one we're fine on. Judge Penny. Which one is this one? Mr. Moniz. The incident report. Judge Penny. 7:30. Mr. Moniz. 7:30. Judge Penny. So no objection to 7:30. Mr. Moniz. 7:30 can come into evidence, yes, as far as we're concerned, I think. Judge Penny. Plaintiff 7:30 or defendants? Mr. Moniz. Defendant 7:30, Your Honour. Judge Penny. I'm just getting this for Jamie. Elaine. The next view I'm showing her these pictures and asking her whether she sees injuries, she sees property damage. Judge Penny. Okay. Elaine. They are not in yet because we haven't had our case. Of course I would put this in our case after Amber, since we put everything together. But it won't make any sense to the jury unless we can show it and say, do you see an injury? Judge Penny. Yep. Elaine. Do you see any damage? Judge Penny. Okay. Elaine. Do you consider it part of indiscernible? And then there's more pictures. I mean, there are... Go ahead. Mr. Moniz. I would just say, and this is another general point, Your Honour, that this is not... The witness has no knowledge of these photographs. These are just photographs that are being flashed up. Judge Penny. Okay. Mr. Moniz. I mean, they can probably get these in, I'm sure you know, in their case through Miss Heard. I don't see that it's appropriate to get these in through a witness that has no knowledge of the photographs themselves. Judge Penny. Miss Brederhoff, if the witness was here live, like testifying, and you showed her these pictures on the witness stand, and she was like, I did not see it, I don't recognise these, would they come in at that point? Elaine. No, but she didn't say I didn't. Mr. Moniz. She wasn't even asked the question. Elaine. No, she was asked, do you see any injuries? And again, the thing to remember is that in the time frame she's there. Ben Chu. It's still foundation on all. Mr. Moniz. And metadata is another issue. Judge Penny. I think they're going to be coming in eventually. I just don't think... What's the foundation here? Elaine. Could we put Miss Heard on the stand outside the presence of the jury, just to lay the foundation? Mr. Moniz. It doesn't lay any foundation for using it with this witness. I mean, she can put it in for her case, but... J.B. Rottenborn. I think the problem is that given the... Judge Penny. The sequence of everything I understand. J.B. Rottenborn. Indiscernible. Planning to... Indiscernible. Just one time. That makes it a little... Indiscernible. We were breaking it up and we were putting this part in our case. Elaine. After we put J.B. Rottenborn, so we can, indiscernible, the jury to be... Mr. Moniz. That doesn't alter the fact that there's no foundation for using these photographs with this witness. I mean, she can't define as to the... There is... I apologise. I was going to say, there is another issue with the metadata. The metadata testimony has all been stricken out of the transcript. I mean, even if this photo were to come in, and I don't think it should, because again, the witness hasn't seen this photograph, or the witness has no knowledge of the photograph. She's just being shown a series of photographs that she can't testify to. But even if that came in, this should certainly be redacted, I think, because there's no foundation or authentication on the metadata, and it was stricken out of the testimony. Judge Penny. You'd agree that eventually it's coming into evidence in this case, correct? Mr. Moniz. I would presume that it will eventually come in through Miss Heard. Judge Penny. Redact or not redacted, I mean, it's going to be coming in. Mr. Menez. I would assume at some point it's coming in through Miss Heard, but using it with this witness just seems inappropriate. Ben Chew. The officer didn't see any marks. Elaine. It's credibility. It's all credibility of showing her these pictures. No, I don't see an injury. No, I don't see it. Indiscernible. Carpeting. No, I don't see it. You know, that's what she's saying. No, I don't see it. No, I don't see the damage. It's credibility. Credibility is huge. Judge Penny. Well, I understand, and in closing arguments, I'm sure you're going to put these pictures up and say, the officer didn't see anything on these pictures. Mr. Menez. I mean, Miss Heard can testify as to the photos. She has an expert who can opine as to whether or not it's an injury. I don't see why she's using it with J.B. Rottenbaum. To your point, Your Honour, that's exactly why the pictures need to come in now. Otherwise, the jury's not going to know what Officer Signs is talking about. In closing, when the officer says she didn't see anything in these pictures, they're going to have no idea. Elaine. And they're not going to know which pictures. Mr. Menez. They don't need that from the officer. Miss Heard can testify to the extent she's able to testify. This picture was taken this date. This is what I look like. That's the way to get the testimony in. Not by asking an officer, in the abstract, do you see an injury on this photo that you've never seen before? J.B. Rottenbaum. Which we would be able to do if we accept these after. Judge Penny. But this officer is their witness coming in this, their case. Elaine, she's our witness too. So we would have designated the testimony. We have more designated testimony than they do. Mr. Menez. I mean, it doesn't matter who designated more testimony. It doesn't make it appropriate for this witness. Ben Chew. She didn't see any of this. Mr. Menez. I just don't see how you can raise that with this witness. Elaine. We didn't ask that question. We asked her if... Judge Penny. Right, but I mean... It wouldn't have come into evidence with this witness in your case. It would already have been in evidence with your client, is what they're saying. Elaine. Then we would put it in front of us. Judge Penny. I understand, but I have to sustain your objection at this time. Ben Chew. Thank you, Your Honour. Judge Penny. But again, at closing, or whenever, you can bring it up. I can't do it at this time. Ben Chew. Thank you, Your Honour. Mr. Menez. Thank you, Your Honour. Judge Penny. All right. Elaine. So the incident we talked about comes in before. Mr. Menez. I think that's the only exhibit. Judge Penny. 7:30. Mr. Menez. 7:30. Defendant's Exhibit 730. Elaine. Are we able to put that on the screen? Mr. Menez. We can do that for you. If I miss it because I'm working over here. Judge Penny. Are there redactions that need to be done on it? Mr. Menez. I think, well, you can make sure that we have a copy actually, because I'm a little concerned. Elaine. I actually gave you that copy. I gave that this morning to you. Mr. Menez. Did you give that electronically? Because I don't want to be publishing something with something unredacted that should be... Elaine. I'm almost certain, but I am pretty sure we can get... Mr. Menez. It is important to play this, and I'll defer to you on this, obviously. It is important to play this, understanding it's coming into evidence during the deposition. Elaine. I think it would be helpful because we're talking about an incident. Judge Penny. We'll have to stop the deposition since it's not split. Mr. Menez. Understood. Can you, on the off chance that I miss it, can you just make sure to... Elaine. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you where it is. So it's 247-52. Mr. Menez. 247-52. I don't have that at all. Judge Penny. Okay, alright, I'm out. Elaine. Thank you, Your Honour.
All right, we're ready for the jury then? Yes, Your